Good evening and welcome to another Tuesday, everyone. This is the Progress Report, and I'm your host, Dion. It's so wonderful to see you guys once again on a Tuesday, and we have another wonderful show for you. Again, today, I welcome back my good friend, Ron Lewis, and I introduce to all my viewers out there to a Mr. Harrison Tuttle. But before I do, there's a couple of things that I wanted to address this week. So people are coming at cancel culture. And let me tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of cancel culture, but do I see their point on certain things that need to be canceled? Yeah, I do. For example, Pepe Le Pew should have been canceled a long time ago. Okay. First of all, the guy doesn't take no for an answer at all. The female cat that has a white stripe in the middle of her back, she can end up in China. She can end up in France. She can end up in Argentina. She can end up in Timbuktu. And who comes hopping along? Pepe Le Pew. Last time I checked, that's harassment, that's stalking, and there are laws against that, right? To all my friends that are out there, right? This is what I want you to do. A girl that you really, really like, I want you to treat her like you are Pepe Le Pew. I want you to go start kissing on her randomly. I want you to follow everywhere she goes, know where she's going to be at, pop up at restaurants, pop up at the club, pop up at her mama's house, whatever, and see if people don't call you a stalker or you don't get a restraining order against you. So yeah, Pepe Le Pew, not somebody that I want to show my kids to. And this is not something that I thought about when I got into my 30s and just to be popular about or anything like that. I always thought this. You know, my parents used to tell me, leave that girl alone. What, you got a crush on that girl? Leave that girl alone. Blah, 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 blah. You know, Pepe Le Pew, leave that girl alone. She don't want to be bothered. The next thing people are talking about is the Mr. versus Mrs. Potato Head conversation. Mr. and Mrs. Potato. At the end of the day, you know what? Here's how I look at it. Call it the potato head. Put all the parts, male and female, into a box. And you know what? People get to choose how they want to dress their potato. It's that simple. It could be a Mr., a Miss, or a mix. Bam, done. Whatever. It's a potato head. Who cares? Really? It's just, at the end of the day, what I just cannot seem to understand is why are we focused so much on these small fights when there are larger fights out there that we need to fight? Let me tell you something. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean drinking water. I'm going to keep saying that and I'll bring that up. Black people are still dying on the streets. Police brutality is still running rampant. Donald Trump is still allowed to talk in a microphone. We have some real problems. And the other thing, the Dr. Seuss books. You're really mad about that the company, Dr. Seuss Corporation, they said we're not going to produce these books because of the fact that the way they portray Black people in the books. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to the company. The company decided. Cancel culture didn't come and say, you got to take out them books and all the stuff. Because I'll tell you what, to be honest with you, the one book that I would want canceled is Redfish, Bluefish. That book got on my nerves as a kid. Okay? How do you not know what colors of the fish and how many fish you have? Leave me alone, okay? Don't leave me alone. Okay? Cancel that book just because of that. You made it count. That was it. Or even green egg. Do you like green eggs and ham? Have you? Listen. Don't ask me if I want some green eggs and ham, because most likely I do want some green eggs and ham. I'm always hungry and got the munchies. Anyway, with that said, we have a wonderful show for you today. I'm so happy to have my good long-term friend from college here. You guys know one of my good friends and debate buddies. And you know, it's always a good time whenever Ron and I are in the room. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, my good friend, Ronald Lewis.
Hello. What up, Dion?
Hello, what's up, Ron? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm well. I cannot complain. Things are going well and things are moving forward. I hear that you just moved into your new apartment.
I did.
Nice. That's beautiful. How are you getting settled in?
Finally. Styrofoam is an enemy. I'll just be real quick with that. I did not know that styrofoam is this like elusive like substance that if you get it, you know, if it crunches down and you get it places, it's hard to get rid of. So that's been, yeah.
Two materials that are not allowed in my area. styrofoam and glitter. They just get everywhere. And like you ever like spill glitter and then like 2 years later you're still picking up the glitter that you spilled 2 years ago. Like that is the most annoying thing in the world. So
Oddly
styrofoam.
enough, I wouldn't mind if it was glitter, but styrofoam. Yeah, no, but I feel you.
And both glitter and styrofoam. I don't know what it is about with me and glitter. Just like when I was a camp counselor, like as soon as the glitter came out, I'm like, oh yay, oh god, can we pull out the GIMP? You know, like that was me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there is a lot to talk about since the last time I seen you. I think the last time I seen you on the show was before the holiday break. And just quickly, because I always ask everybody, I've been asking all my friends, what was your reaction to the insurrection on January 6th?
That might have been it, actually. Lord have mercy.
I couldn't even take a sip. I couldn't take a sip. That was like that good old like deep breath that you take at church when somebody working your nerves. You're like, Lord,
Lord. For real though, for real. Yeah, it was. I think I was shook, but I also was like, it was expected. I think, considering like the journey that we've been on as a country and as a nation over the past 4 years. So yeah, but definitely took a breath.
I went live in the middle of it, and I'm like, this is it. This is it. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Oh no, here we come. You know, but I mean, but I looked at it and I said, well, it's so funny because these are the same people that say Blue Lives Matters, but they were attacking Blue Lives. The irony. It was just irony all through the entire thing, and it's been since then. We've been in one big chaos. But let's talk some quick topics. The Equality Act passed through Congress on February 25th. This is pretty sweeping legislation that helps codify rights for LGBTQIA plus community, and most of the major news networks covered it. But most did not include comments, quotes, or interviews from members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And the reason why we started this project is because we felt that we started the progress report. We felt as though that like when it comes to the LGBTQ community, a lot of times we're not represented well. And I even took that further and I said, guys, we're going to add Black and Brown communities onto that as well because of the fact that I don't feel like we're reported out. But how do you feel about the Equality Act that passed through Congress on February 25th?
I think it's important. And coming from a generation in which like, LGBTQ people would have their children like stripped away from them, like adopt a kid and then like have your kid taken away from you, right? Or not be given all of the same like legal rights that like straight people are given. Like I remember those moments, right, of state legislatures and courts being like, no, gay people cannot live with each other, or they cannot like adopt children, or just things like that, right? And so it feels as though we've come a long way, but at the same time, like, what about the Equal Rights Amendment, right? Like, what about like women and protections for women within the law? And so we've come a long way, I think, like as a block or as a community or whatnot, but there's still much more. And I think intersection is just so important, right? Like, because it's not just about LGBTQ, it's about like people of color who are LGBTQ, and et cetera, right? Women. Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I always said Don Lemon is one lonely gay man of color. And when it comes to the news network, there's not too many people out there like Don Lemon who's open about his sexuality, and is out there literally asking the hard questions. Now, do I think? And let me tell you something. I love me some brother Don. I love brother Don.
I don't
Don,
know. I don't know about Don. I don't know about Don like that. I don't know about. But go ahead. Go ahead.
no, but what I am gonna say is sometimes I do think that he plays to his network instead of really. There's times where I watch Don, and he's like getting right there, and it's like, bro, don't pull back, don't pull back, come on, come on, come on, come on, give it to me deep, you know. That's like it's just. But again, I think there needs to be more representation, especially when we're talking about, like you said, the segment of Black and Brown LGBTQIA plus people. And I'm even going to extend that when we say our Asian brothers and sisters, because later on during in one of the other shows, we're going to be talking, not today, but another, we're going to be talking about the racism that has gone on in the Asian community. And I was just talking to one of my cousin's best friends, and she was telling me, because her parents own a restaurant and a store, but that's beside the point. We need more people that's going to get out there and say that's going to be in the news media and putting up the real issues in our community. And I just feel like in many ways this is taking a back seat in some ways in media, but that's just my Malcolm Kenyatta. I don't know if you watched the show last week. I have said that I'm ready to go to Pennsylvania and do some campaigning for Mr. Malcolm.
Yes.
Malcolm is running for the Senate in Pennsylvania. So to all my people out there in Philly and Harrisburg, y'all know who you are. Y'all better get on it, because I know y'all watching. I know, because y'all been inboxing me telling me you're watching out there in Philly and Harrisburg. Okay? Y'all better get it together. Anyway, and Pittsburgh. I got some folks in Pittsburgh too. But he's running for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. He will be the first openly gay Black man in the U.S. Senate. Malcolm is the grandson of civil rights leader Muhammad I. Kenyatta. His grandson is continuing his fight. It feels like activism in both the LGBTQ community and Black communities. That's what it feels like. This feels like a win for both communities. And we were just talking about the Black LGBTQ community. I feel like it's a huge win for us.
And in terms of thinking about representation, right? Like Vice President Harris, right, has left the Senate, and so now there's one less Black person in the Senate, and so to just think about representation in the Senate and what that means for, like, I don't know, I think about being a kid and like not really seeing that many people, right, like in places of power, and like how lucky and fortunate like today's youth are to like have that, right? Even though it is just a symbol, right? Like symbols can really move us. So yeah.
I always say about our generation, Ron, the millennial generation, and more so, babies born in the 80s and early 90s. We can remember and look and remember when, for example, like we were talking about when it comes to being open and gay. We grew up during a time where it wasn't cool to be open and gay. And now if we went back to a high school now, I remember in high school, I was in the closet. I wasn't open about my sexuality. Even early years in college, I was, I'm not open about my sexuality. Like you said, we've come a long way when it comes to that. But I just think that, period, when we look at our governments, they should reflect our community. It should reflect the community. It should reflect the people. They should, and you know what? And dare I say, should there be percentages? All right, if there's 20% LGBTQ people in a group, I think 20% of representation should look like those people. Like, period. That's how I look. There was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you're going to give me some good insight on this, and I don't know how to feel about this. It's not on the.
Am I?
To do the secret tonight, but the Meghan and Harry situation.
Oh, Meghan and Harry. I love anything royal. Oh my god. I
know. I like anything royal. So I said the best person to bring this up with is Ron.
Lord, I was just watching the interview today on Oprah.
I have not seen the Oprah interview. Oprah, quite frankly, has been getting on my nerves lately. But
I'm gonna leave Auntie alone.
Listen. Listen, I've gotten in arguments with some of my aunts before. I'll get in an argument with Auntie Oprah. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Like Mississippi. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay. But you know, I have not watched the interview yet. And my thing is, I have like one race comes into it. When the race comes into play, we're asking about the color, what the color of the baby. The baby's gonna be dark or not.
Oh, that thing, yeah.
That was heartbreaking to hear. But I keep hearing this thing where people say Megan knew what she was getting into, and I wanted to get your take on that. People say Megan knew what she was getting into. So what is your take on that?
So I mean, I watched the interview today, and I'm just gonna spoiler alert. She says that she didn't know what she was getting into. That she had never like researched Harry before like meeting him. Like even after, she's never like Googled him. She's never like she didn't understand any of the protocol about like that about meeting the Queen. Like one of the things that she talks about with Oprah is like having to have like a 101 curtsy kind of thing on her first like meeting of the Queen because it was so spontaneous. And she didn't know that she had to actually curtsy like in private life.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The one that she needs to blame is her man because here's how I look at it. Like here's how I look at it. Right. At the end of the day, if I bring someone to my family's house, okay, it is my job to explain to them the protocol in the Baker household. Like, you know, certain things that you say, you don't say. Like when you walk in, like when you go to the Baker, and I'm talking about my father's side, the Baker side, know who the matriarch is. I'm gonna point her out and make sure you say hello to her because if you walk in and walk by her, she's gonna say something to you. You're not gonna like it. Period. You know. And so like in many ways when I sit here and listen and as I'm listening to everything, I have no choice but to blame Harry. You should have told her prior what she was getting into before she got into it. If you really loved her and you truly cared about her and this is what you wanted to be your wife.
I mean, but now they got a cute little life in California. You know, they got a cute life now. So
yeah, but don't pick up the hold on. When life starts getting hard, don't pick up the phone and try to call daddy. That's that privilege shit that I be talking about right now. Okay? With that said, we have to go to commercial. Ron, as always, it's fun talking to you. When I come back, I'll be interviewing Mr. Harrison Tuttle.
Thank you, Dion.
Thank you, Ron.
Government hasn't worked for working families like mine. I know what it's like to see an eviction notice, to work a minimum wage job. My first one was at the age of 12, working to support my family. My dad was a social worker. My mom was a home health care aide. No matter how hard they worked, they struggled to make ends meet for me and my siblings. And unfortunately, my story isn't that unique. It's familiar to Pennsylvanians all across the Commonwealth. Working families from Philly to Erie, from Scranton to Johnstown, from Bethlehem to Uniontown are resilient and leaning on one another. But Pennsylvania and America are at a crossroads. After 4 years of division and just over a month since a failed coup at the United States Capitol, second floor, we face a question of who we want to be as a country. But we also face a recognition what's been broken has been broken for more than 4 years. We have to answer the question at the heart of every campaign. Who should government work for? We need policies that actually speak to working families and lift them up. We have to choose. Are we going to go down the path of darkness? Or are we ready to bring a new day to Pennsylvania? A new day that demands we acknowledge how out of reach the American promise has been for too many of us. A new day where we confront head-on challenges in healthcare, in climate, in gun violence, and poverty. A new day where we don't just talk about justice, but we make it real in our lifetime. A new day where no matter who you are, who you love, how you worship, you get a fair shot. It's time for a new day, Pennsylvania. I'm Malcolm Kenyatta, and I'm running for the United States Senate.
Hello, everyone. It's crazy. I'm sitting here and I just had while I was getting ready to come in, a song popped in my head. Barry White's "My First, My Last, My Everything." I don't know why that popped into my head, everyone, but it did. It really popped into my head. Maybe it's because I like the progress report. And it's my first, my last, my everything. The answer to all my dreams. With all that said, I'm truly happy today because I get to interview and meet someone else and gain another friend. And let me tell you something, since we have started this project, I have met so many people through the progress report, and I have watched so many things happen. And I'm not saying it's because of progress report, it's because what they've been doing themselves. And we have another young man who is a native here to Rhode Island, was born and raised in Cranston, Rhode Island. Is the communications director for BLM Rhode Island and the BLM New England PAC. Excuse me. Harrison attended CCRI, so did I, Harrison, majoring in early education with plans to transfer to URI this spring semester, until he came to the conclusion that he wanted to dedicate his life to Black liberation and the work with the PAC. Harrison's political awakening came when he was political awakening came when his high school principal was caught on camera using racial slurs directed towards Black and Jewish people. Open quote, "It is my duty to continue to carry the torch that men and women have died and suffered." Before we bring Harrison on, I think we have a small quick video clip that we're going to show.
Hello everyone, Harrison Tuttle here, the newest Executive Director of Black Lives Matter RI and New England PAC. I cannot wait to continue the work that our great team has already accomplished, and I look forward to fulfilling the mission statement in which Joshua Franco and Corey Jones set out this summer.
So, to everyone, I would like to introduce Mr. Harrison Tuttle.
How's it going, Dion?
How you doing, Harrison? Thank you so much for coming on the progress report today. And can I just be I don't think I'm the first, but I want to congratulate you as being selected as the new executive director of the BLM Rhode Island PAC. How does that make you feel, like, to know that you?
Yeah, I was always a person, as you read my bio, was someone who, wanted to get involved in an organization early on, with never plans of making it a career. Originally my plan was to be a kindergarten teacher, with the plans of, wanting to be the first Black person a child would see in the classroom. And that really, really stuck with me and what I wanted to do. But during the summer's protest, I met Corey. And, originally it was something that I wanted to do on the side. But it soon became clear that, I wanted to dedicate my life to this in this fight. That's I guess why the position that I'm in today. It's an honor and a responsibility to not only, serve the community, but, fight for the things that are important.
So we had Corey Jones on the show a few weeks ago. Next week we have our panel, and I believe you and him will be on the same panel next week, which is going to be very exciting. Corey's 23, you're 21. I'm not going to say how old I am, because then you're going to be like, "What's up, Grandpa?" But and then I'll give away Ron's age because he's much, much older. But how do you handle the way people treat you, and when they say it, when they try to say you're too young?
Well, thankfully, I am in a position in which, I really, look to seek to make for change and surround myself with people who think like that don't try to limit myself to, my age. And I think oftentimes in society, we put caps on what people can achieve based off their sexual orientation, how they identify, and, their age, their race. And personally, I feel like, that is an awful way to think of living your life is by, creating a system in which, you can't do things because of your age. And it should be totally based off your ability.
Right, you know, and I totally agree. You know, over the summer I went to the Black Lives Women's march, and you know, and I've spoken about it on my podcast Coffee with D about what I had seen that day, and I was very angry. Young woman, I'm not sure if you know her name. Oh my goodness, now her name just left my entire head. Brooklyn, sorry, Brooklyn. Sorry, Brooklyn. Charge that to my head, not my heart. You know, I love you out there. I know she's watching. But I watched a older Black woman literally put down Brooklyn right before my eyes because Brooklyn wanted to speak at the Women's Matters March, and they were saying that she wasn't important enough. She didn't have anything to say. She needed to basically sit back and listen to the older women. And one thing that Brooklyn had said, and it always resonated with me, and I felt it because you know, I was a young man once. I was your age once as well. And people used to tell me, wait your turn, you're not ready, things like that. Something Brooklyn had said, just because I'm young, I'm 21 years old, doesn't mean I don't have a lifetime of experience. You know, and one thing I've always realized is that experience doesn't matter the age of a person. It matters what they've gone through, or what life circumstances have given them. So
Yeah.
So when people do say, you know what, Harrison, you're only 21 years old. You just graduated CCRI. You know what? Get some more life experience, then come try to sit at the table. How do you handle those people? How do you?
Yeah. I don't care. Um, I don't care. I know the things that I'm fighting for are correct. I know that the things that I'm fighting for are human rights. And I don't take that lightly. And so usually someone who would say that would be jealous of a position that I'm in and insecure about what they have not done. And so, yeah, I wouldn't care what they think.
So Harrison, you said your political awakening came when you was in high school, when
Mm.
you used racial slurs against Black and Jewish people. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I went to Bishop Hendricken High School, and
Oh my goodness, I remember this story. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I remember this story. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. And I'll tell you how I know exactly this story. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I went to Bishop Hendricken High School, and I was blessed to have an opportunity to go there, and receive financial support by them. And so when it comes to the experience that I've had with the teachers and students, I enjoyed my time there. But one of the things was that the principal, Jay Brennan, was caught on video using racial slurs towards Black people and Jewish people. And, that was a situation in which it became very real for me. And what we did was we organized a student protest. We dressed up in all black. I wouldn't say it was the most organized thing, being made up of, a group of 16, 17-year-olds, but it was an exam week. We stopped taking exams because we just weren't going to take them. And, that was kind of the start of my, political awakening. And I was very upset because my brother went to Hendricken as well. And I was very upset that, the following year, I saw Jay Brennan giving out communion to the same students in which he racially discriminated against. And so I'm not aware if he is still there, but I've reached out to Hendricken during that time and received nothing back. So regarding that, I don't know where I stand with Hendricken. Probably not that.
I remember this story because I remember the day that everything took place. I was working at the Meadowbrook McDonald's right there, and Sandy Lane, corner of Sandy Lane and Warwick Avenue. I was the assistant manager there. So we'd always have the Hendricken students always come into the lobby after 3 o'clock to get some type of snack or whatever. You're probably one of the kids. You're probably one of the kids. But I'll never forget that day. I think what did my heart so good was the fact that you had your your fellow students who were white that stood up for you as well and said, listen, this is wrong. Like, nobody should be speaking like this or anything like that, especially in education. And, I'm actually glad that instead of it taking a negative turn, because some people would have taken a negative turn, like, you know what, they don't care about us, F the system. But you said, you know what, F the system, they may not care about us, but I'm going to turn it around in a way. You say, I'm gonna turn it around. I'm gonna find a way, another avenue. I applaud you for that, because there's so many people that will sit there and go the opposite way. So Corey Jones, like I said, we had Corey a few weeks ago, was the previous director for BLM New England PAC, was just elected to be the governor's new policy advisor on equity, justice, and opportunity. Does your organization see that as huge success? And what is your next big step for the organization?
Yeah, obviously, Dan giving Corey that position as a policy advisor is something that is unprecedented, really, in Rhode Island politics, but I'm pretty sure, in politics in general. I stress the urge that diversity is great, but being able to change systems is more important. And if, the people don't have the codes to change the system and they're just there, then that's not going to be an effective way of change. I kind of use the example of being on a sports team and then being on the sideline and then watching everyone else play. That's kind of a symbolism of, when Joe Biden or any politician puts a diverse cabinet or a diverse anything on their team, usually they just continue to do the same things that they've already been doing with just different colors. And so that worries me because I don't think that people realize that. And, it is good to have people in positions of high positions of color or of anything. But if you're not actively trying to change the system in which oppresses us, you're not going to make much change that you're probably looking for. And regarding the PAC, we as a PAC are really, we go by our mission statement. And so our mission statement is to elect young Black progressives into office with the hope that we can gain majority in a majority of these systems to change the system itself. And oftentimes, during these protests and these summer protests, we say we want to hold these people accountable. Well, these people aren't going to listen to us because every 4 years or every time re-election comes, they're going to, say that they care, but they're not going to do anything. And so we have to elect people and support people who want to fight for us and that actually want to fight for us every single day, not just every election cycle.
I totally agree with that because you just said something about Joe Biden's cabinet. A lot of people are like, oh, look how diverse Joe Biden's cabinet is, and even some folks here at the Progress Channel have talked about the diversity. And Ken Barber being as my witness, I'll be the first one to sit there and say, I'm going to wait to see what you're going to do. To be honest with you, just because you're Black doesn't mean that you support the policies or the legislation that we need to support. For example, reparations. There are Black people who speak against reparations. There are people who migrate to this country that speak against immigration. So just because you fit the description for the position doesn't mean you qualify for what we're looking for to move the country or the municipality forward. Time to Run, Time to Run is kind of been like your little baby. Just started that recently. Can you explain to us what Time to Run is? Corey talked a little bit about it when he was here, but can you explain what Time to Run is and what your overall mission is?
Yeah, Time to Run is a political nonprofit or a 501c4 for people who are in politics. And basically our goal is to be able to create an expedited training course that lasts around 6 to 15 minutes long, in which if you wanted to be a civic leader or you wanted to raise money for politics or you wanted to be elected as an official, This training course would allow you to be able to have the needs and the skills to be able to do that. And I think, oftentimes we look at, politicians and we think that they're in a completely different stratosphere as us. And the reality is that we think that because we don't have the economic means. And that's because we feel like we can't reach out to family or friends because a large majority of us who are trying to make change are byproducts of oppression. And, what Time to Run will do is allow people to realize that there is an entire nation, there are groups of people who are willing to help you if you use data and are able to look out into the country and be able to raise money through that instead of saying, okay, Bill or Bob, please give me $1,000 so I can get this campaign going. And so that's really what Time to Run. And I want to preference that with, this is a great opportunity for the youth to be able to get into elections as soon as possible. And so this is really for the youth. This is something that we want to push in the near future, and a video should be coming out pretty shortly. So,
so I had a question when you were talking, and then I just totally forgot the question. I should have written it down. When they say when you have a question, write it down. If it's important, as they say, if it's important, it's going to come back to me. But it was kind of it was about I would like to add to that is the other aspect on the data is also the grassroots organizing. I think when I look at several different campaigns that were ran here in the state of Rhode Island when it came to state rep races and state senate races, I believe that their ground game, their ground strategy is what won. Hey, listen, 2008, Barack Obama won. Why? Because of his ground game. In 2012, he won again because of his ground game. Hillary lost in 2016. Why? She did not have an effective ground game strategy. I think your ground game strategy is huge. And, it's crazy. People, you don't realize until you get out there with that ground game, knocking on doors, that you can actually run a campaign with no money, a little to no money, and just knock on someone's door and they remember your name because you made that impact or you made that connection. Mm-hmm. So Harrison, we're going to go to commercial, okay? And we're going to come back with Ron Lewis because I want Ron to come in because there's another question I want to ask you. It's kind of about education. And with Ron being an educator, myself in education, you in education, 3 different aspects of education, we probably could fix the education system tonight, hopefully. But everybody, stick around. More with Harrison when we come back.
For the next full spin, we're bringing you a visual album of non-stop drag set to Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. Join us on Tuesday, March 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern, hosted by Magenta with a J, and featuring Ophelia Hotass, Anomalia, Sapphire Feliciano, Toast, Ubi Aaron, Avery Goodlay, Degrassi Knoll, Tiki Vante, Zad Gravebone, Missy Steak, Amanda Massacre. We'll also be raising funds for City Life Vida Urbana, fighting for social justice and helping people stay in their homes. So join us for Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia on Tuesday, March 9th on Magenta with a J's Twitch channel.
My name is Brian Sims, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. I think every day about the values that my Army officer parents instilled in me, to take responsibility, to show empathy, to have courage, and to be authentic. I want to put those values to the direct service of the Commonwealth. I have a lot of hope when I look at the people across the country that decided over these last number of years that they'd had enough, that they looked at a lack of leadership and thought that they could do better, because oftentimes they're right. We are the antidote to broken politics. My time in the Pennsylvania legislature has taught me a lot about not only how Pennsylvania government works, but a lot about how it doesn't. It's taught me a lot about how to work with people who don't always agree with me. I think it's time for me to take what I've learned in the House and to be able to bring that leadership to the direct service of the governor. I want to be your next lieutenant governor. We need adults in the room, and I want to bring bold, visionary leadership based on lived experiences and shared values to the Commonwealth.
Hello, everyone. The funny thing is, I was thinking of another song. I really was. I don't know what's going on with me tonight. Music's just in my head. I was thinking of Luther Vandross' "Never Too Much." Never, never, never too much. I can't sing it. But anyway, we've had a great conversation so far tonight, and I want to bring these two back. My good friend, Ron Lewis, and my new friend, Mr. Harrison Tuttle. Welcome back, guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
All right, guys. So let's have some conversation. So one, I'm gonna ask this question, and I'm gonna ask this directly to Ron. The fight for equity seems to never end. How do we keep moving forward?
Ooh. How do we keep moving forward? How do we keep moving forward? Well, I think it's in the everyday, right? It's in the everyday, and the breakfast conversations and the lunch conversations, dinner conversations, deep personal conversations with partners and children and family, right? Like all of those things. And then it's also like in that like larger kind of space too, right? And I think the narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves, and that we tell each other are also really important. Yeah.
Harrison, what do you think we need to do to keep moving forward?
I feel like equity is something that is a new trend word that kind of has come up recently, and I think the whole point for people who may not know what equity is equity is basically being able to have a leveled playing field, and with the understanding that there are people, specifically Black people, oppressed people, Black and brown people, who are starting at a different point and have to work 2 times harder to get to the same point in which, let's say, white people have started at. And so there's always going to be a disparity in being able to have different outcomes. And it is a nonstop fight, Dion. And it's because we have had over 400 years plus of being able to, white people being able to exploit our labor, our capital, and treat us as second-class citizens, whether that's through slavery, whether that's through the prison industrial complex, whether that's through the military industrial complex. What we see systems that are built specifically to hold us down on purpose. And so the fight for equity will naturally always continue under this economic system of capitalism that we have, which seeks to exploit the workforce, in which you will have a group of elite people that gain all the profit, and then the rest of those people work for that benefit of that person. And what we find is that a majority of those people who are working for are Black people and oppressed groups of people, women, and so that, and you can add different reform tactics to that, but ultimately we have to look at the system itself of capitalism and understand that the means of production should be controlled by the people that actually control, production. And so, oftentimes people talk about, we want to be able to have a say in things. Well, that's kind of tough if you don't have the codes or you don't have the power. And I think a large majority of people, if talked like this, would understand that, it's not right for one person to be able to pay for their kids' college and another person to be, working, even $15 an hour is ridiculous because it doesn't account for inflation.
Right.
Shouldn't be a group of people that are struggling to meet their human necessities, and then a business owner who is doing fine.
It's crazy because when I worked for McDonald's for 4 years, where it got very sour with me because in the beginning I was getting my raises because I worked for a general manager that believed in rewarding her hardest work employees. You come to work on time, early, whatever. You make sure your lineup's done. You do what you have to do, things like that. When you leave, when you come in, shift well ran. When you leave, well stocked, clean store. So she rewarded us, and then I moved to another store, the store that we were just talking about. And that's when some of the problems I had started arising. And I started looking at the fine tooth comb. And then I finished all my department management stuff. And I started learning and looking like, I think what bothered me most was the fact that to know that the people who didn't work in the store, when there was overhead, they were getting a bonus. They were getting the raises. That bothered me. But what also I think bothered me the most, and which it did bother me a lot, was the fact that anytime minimum wage went up, they would give you, and it wasn't a raise, and I made it very clear, it was a cost of living adjustment. And I'll never forget when I was sitting down across from my area supervisor, and he says, well, we're going to give you a raise to this amount because what I was making was lower than minimum wage. And I said, wait a minute, hold on. I was already making, 75 cents on the hour, 75 cents on the hour more than minimum wage. Why am I not getting the 75 cents? I'm only getting 25 cents. I don't think that's fair to me. That's not a raise. It's not a raise. If minimum wage went up to $15 an hour and someone was getting paid 75 cents, you pay them $15.75 for the hour, and you pay them $15.75 an hour. You raise them to the $15 and you give them that 75 cents extra that they were already making. That's in my opinion, would be the fair. Do I think $15.75 is enough for people to do the jobs in McDonald's and things like that? Heck no, it's not. It's not. It's not. But again, like I've always said, it comes back down to management. Because even myself as a kitchen manager, anytime I got a bonus, I would share it with the people in my department because I wasn't just me. I wasn't there at the store. I was only at the store 50 hours a week. That's not 7 days a week from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's not 50 hours. But there's another conversation I really want to get into is education conversation. BLM Rhode Island PAC has a short ad being circulated about Providence Public School System. And I'm a product of Providence Public School System, and I've been talking about the issues in Providence Public School System for a while. So let's take a look at this video and we're going to discuss.
The three-page report paints a dark picture of the city's schools. The researchers went inside classrooms of a dozen schools, which they do not name, coming out with this stunning observation. Quote, very little visible student learning was going on in the majority of classrooms and schools we visited. In one example, in an English language arts class, they saw no authentic reading. The researchers were disturbed by the condition of the school buildings, writing, quote, the worst reduced seasoned members of the review team to tears. A team member observed at one school, quote, the smell of stale urine in the physical therapy room was so strong.
Black Lives Matter.
So let me just say this, guys. I went to Providence Public School System. I graduated from Broad Street Elementary School, Roger Williams Middle School, and what used to be Providence Academy of International Studies, which is now the 360 School building in the Juanita Sanchez Education Complex. And Harris, I'm gonna let you start off with this because BLM did put out that, and you are the communications director of BLM Rhode Island. The executive director of BLM Rhode Island. Could you please expound upon the inequalities in education for us in the Providence school system?
Yeah, it's and I was speaking about it earlier on equity and how there's kind of built-in inequality. When we look at our education system, it's a very outdated model. It's a model in which we, base scores based off funding, and how that could dictate, how we treat people and how we give people education. The curriculum is whitewashed when it comes to history. And it's a situation in which we put kids in a position in which we train them to work 9 to 5 jobs and work in a cubicle or whatever. And that is not how people's brains operate. And just, going on, a little bit of what the ad said, there is a huge problem of education, teachers being, a majority white, 86% white. And that comes from growing up not seeing any people of color in the classrooms teaching. And that is a major, major problem that, we had an event with Dan McGee a couple of weeks ago talking about that and how we needed to create programs in which incentivized people of color to teach
Right.
in the classroom because
Years ago they had the Inspiring Teachers program, the Inspiring Principals program, and Rhode Island Department of Education took those programs away. You had many black and brown people that were trying to become principals, that wanted to become teachers. The purpose of putting teachers assistants and training them in the schools to get more black and brown people in the school system, but yet it seems like the school system in many ways in Providence is failing that objective. Would you?
Yeah, it's a situation in which it's pretty evident that we need programs, as you were speaking on, to come back, and that can be done in different ways. That can be done having programs through CCRI to create a situation in which teachers who graduate with a degree in CCRI in early education and any education can go right into the field. And one of the problems that you see is that people are not getting paid for going and teaching and being out in the field in college. And realistically, for people of color, that's not possible. We can't wait and watch our student debt accumulate and then just be like, okay, well, I guess when I get out of college, I'm going to be in debt, and then I'm only going to make $45,000 a year. And it's the people who really want to teach who are going to teach regardless, and we need to help those teachers out.
Ron, you're a teacher. You're a teacher. And so, give me your entire opinion on the inequalities, especially when it comes to race in the education system.
Coming from the South, I think that the inequalities within Rhode Island's education system are rather stark. I graduated from Rick in 2015, and since then have been working in the field of education in Rhode Island. And just from the perspective of space, right? Ideally a school building, right? And currently I work for a charter school, so I don't work for the public necessarily public school. But I did work in public schools. And from the perspective of space, one would imagine that you would want a school building to be healthy and clean and a building or a space that was able to hold not only imagination and creativity, but also just feel good to breathe in. And one of the things that I quickly realized was that very few buildings, like school buildings in Providence or in Rhode Island, I want to say Providence, I'll stick with Providence, they feel good to exist or to be in, right? To inhabit. There's tiles that are falling. There's water that is bad to drink. And these are things when I first started teaching that there was a moratorium on fixing these issues that are in the school buildings. And so that to me is really odd, because coming from Florida, I grew up having just the state of the art school building, right? That was just what we did. And so to move in to live and move in a space in which that's not the standard, and that's not something that is protocol or that we do that just feels weird and like unjust. And yeah,
it's crazy that you say that, because I remember, in the 10th grade, at Providence Academy of International, we were downtown Providence in the old welfare building, and my friend Marvin was on last week. He and I have been friends since high school. What we were talking a little bit about, there was literally this big curtain that divided one of the classrooms, and that classroom, one side was our history class, the other side was our science class. But we found out towards the end of the year, like in May of my 10th grade year, that for 2 years we were breathing in mold in that building. And so we were breathing in mold. People were drinking from the bubbler, as we call it over here in New England, for those of you
bubbler.
Water fountain, but bubbler. People were drinking from that and drinking it. Kids were drinking lead, things of that nature. So then when we got the new school building, and it was my 11th grade year, I'll never forget the feeling we felt as 11th graders when the first time someone tagged the bathroom, wrote on the bathroom wall. We were super upset. We literally did an investigation. Found out whose tag it was. Come to find out it was some 9th graders, and we literally threatened the entire 9th grade class defacing the property of the school. Now, I want to say I went back there, I want to say 4 or 5 years after I graduated, and literally it has turned into where when I remember walking in the 2 years that I had been in that building, it was state of the art, it was clean, you wanted to be there, we wanted to be in class.
Right.
Now I look at it, it's the floors are dirty, some of the bathroom door handles are broken, things like that. It's like,
right.
It's all tagged up. So
I feel as though that, like,
on that, I get what you're saying. I wouldn't want, if I was a student, like, put it like this: I don't like working in bad conditions. Never mind trying to learn in a bad condition.
Right,
So.
and school is a space in which, like, human beings spend like 8 hours plus, right, a day. And to this point of, like, it should be a space that people like want to exist in and want to be in, right? But also, I think to this point that the infrastructure is like the thing that is wrong, right? Like, which may point to the fact that, like, the whole way, I think, which Harrison, you were bringing up, the ways in which we like imagine education within like our country are like wrong, and maybe need some investigation.
Right, and it's one of those things where, like, we're grading people before like high school even. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we putting people in a situation in which we know grades affect people's mental health? We know that there are other ways to evaluate someone's, I would say, intelligence. Why are we putting a kid in a position in 3rd grade that if he can't spell a word correctly, then he fails? Like, that's just, it doesn't make sense to me. What?
See, I would say that I would say this, like, and Ron and I always debate when we talk about, like, when a misspelled word, it's not my job. Like, okay, you got the word wrong, but let me give you the tools so you can get it right. And I always go back to, we need to get back to giving the tools to get the answer.
Or maybe language is evolving. Maybe language is evolving, and we're changing the way we spell things.
You know where I'm going to go with that one. Cat is C-A-T, not K-A-T. Okay. I understand language does evolve, things of that nature. But when people literally don't know what you're writing, when people can't make out what you're writing, that's a problem. And let's be real.
What if I spelled it?
Hold on, Ron. If that's the case, all the Trump supporters that misspell words, don't use correct grammar, maybe language is evolving. There you go.
Oh. What if I spelled it C-H-A-T?
C-H-A-T, that's chat. Come on, Ron. But no, in all seriousness, I think there's a big, especially when it comes to language. I was a literacy specialist, taught business communications at the Met High School for 8 years. And one of the things that I always said, well, it's not that you got it wrong. I can see why you spelled it that way. I see that you went phonemic, you sounded it out, things like that, but let me show you why. Show you why. Let's get into this. I was talking to somebody earlier today, one of my friends, she says, I never got sentence structure. And literally within 5 minutes over the phone, I taught her sentence structure. And I said, well, it's not that you didn't get it. Nobody properly taught it to you. You know what I mean? For example, I would love to see home economics back in the schools because it reinforces mathematics. My grandma, how did I learn how to make recipes or bake a cake or things like that? I had to use fractions. If the recipe only called for 8 people and I had to serve 16, I had to use fractions in order to get the answer that I was looking for. So when you have programs like that, such as home economics, woodwork, and all that stuff, I see our producer saying we're way over time. I kind of knew that, but when he gave me 5 extra minutes, I said I might as well just put the metal to the pedal on. But I just always felt as though when we educate children, it's not just about what's done in English, mathematics, science, or history. It's also what's done in those other classes, but also what's done when they're outside of school. Some of the greatest learning, things that we've learned, has been outside the school. And how do we evaluate what's learned in the home already? For example, by the time I was 13 years old, I already knew how to cook. I didn't need to take cooking. But I still took it because it was easy. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Or for example, by the time I was in 10th grade, I was at a 12th grade reading and writing level. I was ahead of everybody else. Why do I still have to take 2 more years of English?
Right.
Let's reevaluate in how we do it. And that's why, again, and I'm not saying one school's better. When I started at the Met, I absolutely believed in their mantra, one student at a time. It literally, you have to take it one kid at a time, and every kid becomes your textbook and not what you learn
Right.
in college. So, sorry, we're over time, guys. I just gave my whole spiel. That's probably going to be my final thought anyway. But we're going to be right back with final thoughts. Sorry, everybody. Stay tuned.
Kikipedia, your online guide to LGBTQ plus bars, clubs, and events. Find all the tea on your local gay bars. Home of the internet's most comprehensive digital drag show and virtual event guide. Visit kikipedia.app or dragstreams.com now!
Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. This has been a great conversation. Even in between segments, we've been laughing and things like that. It's always great. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Harrison, for coming on today. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. For those of you who didn't catch the whole program, make sure you go back on the rewatch. And I can't wait for the show next week to have Harrison back for the panel. That's going to be great. That's going to be good. But we have to go to final thoughts now. So I'm going to start with one of my oldest and dearest friends. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lewis, on your final thoughts. 60 seconds.
My final thought, C-A-H-T?
I can't do it right now.
Hey, listen, language is always evolving. It's always changing. Let's embrace. It's a hard thing to do. Trust, I know. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. C-H-A-T. If that starts catching on as cat, I'm blaming you, by the way. I'm just blaming you. Harrison.
I guess my final thoughts is that first off, I just want to thank you for having me on this show and next week as well. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I think these conversations that are had are healthy, and I think that they need to be said. I can't wait to continue the work, hopefully with you guys, and I want to have a progress report in person one day. That's the goal. I want to have a progress report in person.
Listen, that is the goal. Speak on it. Speak on it. I receive it. Speak on it. It's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yes. In-person progress report. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So first, let me thank Ronald Lewis. Thank you so much for being here, Ron. We got to get dinner at Sarah's soon.
Yes.
Harrison, welcome to join us over at Sarah's. That's kind of me and Ron's spot. He got me into what is those pancake type things, the scallion things?
Scallion pancakes?
Yeah, those. He got me into those.
Yes.
But thank you so much for being on today, Harrison. I'm going to say this to you in my final thoughts. You are young, but I believe that the young are called because they are bold. And as we see all over this country and as we see all over this state, more and more young people are taking on that boldness and saying enough is enough. I'm not going to wait around like my older brother and my older cousins were told to. I'm not going to stand aside like my parents and grandparents were told to. I am going to pick up the mantle. I'm going to take the reins and drive this buggy. And if you don't want me to do it, if you want to stand in my way, I'm going to bust through the wall with all power and all might that I can have. And this is what I have to say to those of you who want to stop the young people. Either step aside or join the fight. Either way, you don't want to get left behind. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much. Make sure you join us next week where I'll have another friend here, my friend Izzy here, and we will have our full panel of everybody that was here during this segment. Once again, thank you guys. Good night to everyone, and good night, Rhode Island.
Thank you.